the She Angels Foundation. I'm also the podcast host of Invest in Her and an award-winning producer, author, and TEDx speaker. Our show, Invest in Her, features phenomenal female founders and funders. As you know, women receive less than 2% of venture capital funding. Our series is about accelerating the funding of women by connecting them to funding resources. Let's meet today's guest. Welcome to this week's episode of Invest in Her. I'm your host, Catherine Gray, founder of She Angel Investors and co-founder of the She Angels Foundation. We are all about connecting female entrepreneurs to funding resources, and telling you about amazing innovations on the horizon. Speaking of that, we have on an incredible guest today. She is the co-founder and CEO of Dioro Devices and the inventor of NexStride. Let's welcome to the show, Sidney Collin. Hi, Sidney. How are you?
Hi, Catherine. I'm doing well. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. I'm so glad that our paths crossed. I know we got an introduction and, all these incredible women in the venture capital world know each other. And it's so interesting to be introduced to incredible women like yourself every day. I want to talk about your background and how you got into this. And, you are obviously an incredibly smart woman in the neurosciences. And I see that you went to Cal Poly. And at Cal Poly, you were voted one of the most influential women at Cal Poly, and several other awards that I had noticed here. Cal Poly's Outstanding Women in Engineering Award. So tell me, where were you born and where did you grow up and how did you end up at Cal Poly?
I was born in Berkeley, in California. Grew up in the Bay Area. I think, how did I end up at Cal Poly? I mean, I always knew that I wanted to do some sort of engineering. I just like to build stuff and kind of work with my hands. And I had learned about biomedical engineering through TED Talks that I was watching at the time in my human anatomy and physiology class. I'd always been fascinated with understanding how the body works, how the brain works, how they interact. And then I found biomedical engineering, just kind of mixing those two passions. And Cal Poly, has a well-known engineering program. And they were one of the only schools that I was looking at that had a biomedical engineering program.
Wow.
And so it was a good fit. I went and visited, absolutely loved it. I don't know if you've ever been to San Luis Obispo, but it is a magical town.
It really is. It's very charming. I have been there. We had another family member go to school in that same town. So you founded Dioro Devices. You are the co-founder. You founded that with who?
My co-founder is William Thompson. He was finishing up his MBA when I was finishing up my undergrad.
Cool. And so you just thought your two synergies would be stronger than one, I take it.
Well, I had already started kind of working on this as a side project in school, or outside of school, but while I was studying undergrad. And I knew that this device kind of needed to be out there in the world, but I was an engineering person and didn't have any background in business. And I knew that I needed somebody who was a little bit more business minded to help me start the company. So I found Will as I was interviewing different business people, and he was the perfect fit. And, I hear all these horror stories now of people who, start working together after one interview and it ends up not working out at all, but we just were really lucky. It's a really good fit. We've worked together for 4 years now, more than that probably.
That's so smart.
It works really well.
You were like this innovator and everything, but realizing that your strengths didn't lie in the business arena and bringing someone in. And I really applaud you for that, because there's so many people that come out, they come out of school, they try to start something because they're really good at something, but they aren't the business person. And that was just brilliant, really, of you to bring in that person with, what it is that you felt you may not bring to the table. And I think that's the downfall of a lot of entrepreneurs. They try to do everything themselves, including the things they're not good at, instead of pinpointing what they're really good at, and then what they're not really great at and don't even like doing, and bringing people in that are really good at doing what they're not, right? I mean, I do think that kind of is the
I
winning
100%
recipe
agree.
for a business. Yeah.
I
So
100% agree. I think that that's really important. I think there's a lot of learning for people to have on what they're good at, what they're not good at, and understanding. This is something that we've worked with in our team, the Clifton, we've done a couple times, the Clifton Strengths Workshop. So understanding the strengths of different people on your team and how to optimize those to work together
absolutely.
as
And
optimally as you can as a team, rather than each individual person trying to be good at everything.
right. And they do say a lot of the most successful, profitable businesses have both a female and male perspective at the table. So it's a good combination. It really probably is best never to be all of one or the other. It's
Right.
a great combo because men and women bring a different perspective to the table, right? But
Definitely.
yeah, I really applaud you for seeing that and knowing that that wasn't your strength, and bringing him in. So let's talk about your incredible invention, which is NexStride. That's why I wanted to have you on the show, because it's so amazing, and I love the story you shared with me, and I want you to share it with the audience of what is NexStride and how did it come to be?
Sure. So NexStride is a mobility aid for people with neurological ambulatory disorders. And what
And
we
that would be like
essentially,
what? Like MS or Parkinson's, things
right,
like that, right? Yeah.
exactly. Parkinson's, stroke, cerebral palsy, multiple sclerosis, PSPs, progressive supranuclear palsy, um, those types of disorders that are kind of neuro focused, involved in the brain and how it sends signals, how it interacts with the body. So how did it get started? So I studied biomedical engineering undergrad. We talked about that already. I've always been fascinated understanding how the brain works, how the body works, how they interact. All my research background is in brain-computer interfacing, doing deep brain stimulation for people with Parkinson's, doing EEG neurofeedback for children with ADHD. And while I was in undergrad, I met this local veteran named Jack Brill, who lived with Parkinson's, and he suffered from a mobility symptom called freezing of gait that stopped him from being able to go to the bathroom by himself, to go on a walk with his wife, Sandy, to essentially live his life. Um, and so I started to look into the research, and I found that there were these visual and auditory cues that could be used to kind of overcome freezing of gait, reestablish the connection between the brain and the body, and allow him to be able to start walking again. And these cues, I mean, at the time that I found them, there were already over 100 peer-reviewed articles that have been published showing the efficacy of these visual and auditory cues. They were standard of practice in any physical therapy clinic, but there wasn't a way for Jack to take those cues outside of the physical therapy clinic and be able to use them at home, to go to the bathroom by himself, to, walk from the bedroom to the kitchen, to live his life, to feel independent, to feel like himself. And so all I did really was take the cues that had already been proven to be effective and make them portable, make them accessible for Jack anywhere. And that's, I mean, essentially how the first product was built.
And is this like
He's
in the form of an app or software, or how does that, what is the portability factor?
It's hardware, so it's just a small device about the size of a palm
Oh,
that
wow.
has the visual cues, a green laser light projected onto the floor in front of you. The auditory cue is a metronome. Those two cues alone have been shown to reduce falls by 40% for people with Parkinson's disease. And essentially, we take those two cues, put them in a small device, and we can attach that onto any cane, walker, or walking pole, so that anybody can use these cues, this device, no matter what mobility aid they're using, no matter where they're at.
Wow, that's great. So, in other words, he attaches this to his cane, and then he
Right.
can walk across the room because it gives him cues. Can you explain it a little bit more?
Yeah. So the reason that freezing of gait happens, so freezing of gait is medically defined as a sudden onset of immobility. Jack will explain it as feeling like his feet are glued to the floor or stuck in a box of cement. So no matter how hard he tries, he cannot pick up his foot.
I have a friend that has MS that explains it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really frustrating, right? It's really debilitating. It's one of the leading causes of falls for people with Parkinson's disease. And the reason that this happens is that there's a specific neural pathway in the brain that's getting damaged or disconnected that makes it so that when your brain is sending that signal to initiate movement, that signal just doesn't get to the motor neurons that are activating your muscles. So what we can do is we can use these visual and auditory cues to activate the goal-oriented neural pathways in the brain instead of the automatic neural pathways. And that allows you to use a different part of the brain to initiate the same movement. You're bypassing those damaged neural circuits that are causing freezing of gait, and you're able to start walking again.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Fascinating. Yeah. Well, how wonderful that, you had this personal story, like you really cared about this guy and, wanted to see him do better. And,
Yeah.
isn't that where most technology is born out of? Somebody recognizes there's a need and they want to change it. How are you marketing this? Like if somebody listening has Parkinson's, MS, some sort of neurological situation, how do they get it? Is it something that insurance pays for? Fill us in on that.
Yeah, so it's available on our website right now. So getnexstride.com. We can send you the link if that's helpful. Maybe put it in the bio.
Mhm.
And it's about $499. You can either pay for it out of pocket, just purchase it online. We have payment plans as low as $45 a month. And then there's coverage through a couple of organizations. So veterans can get the device 100% covered through the VA.
Wow.
They just request the device from your physical therapist or your primary care provider, and they'll pay for it 100%. And then for people with Parkinson's, they can get it covered through an organization called the Parkinson's Wellness Fund. And that they'll cover up to 100% of the product as well for people who need financial assistance. And we're still working on developing more of those relationships for stroke and for MS and for other populations. But that's the coverage that we have right now for people to be able to get the device covered, because it's really important for us for people, anybody who needs it, no matter what their financial position is, that they're able to get access to the technology.
Absolutely. That's wonderful that you're doing that. So not just online, but through some of these organizations. And
Right.
so you're still reaching out to other organizations. Maybe somebody's affiliated with an organization that deals with like people that have MS. They would
Yeah.
contact you at the Dioro devices. Yeah.
Yep. That's right.
Yep. And I take it, Sidney, that you're on LinkedIn, Sidney Collin at
I
LinkedIn.
am.
Yeah.
I am.
So
I also should note that we just got NexStride up on Amazon. So if anybody wants to purchase it on Amazon, they can do
oh,
that as
that's
well.
fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah. I mentioned I have a friend with MS. I'm going to mention this to her. That's fantastic. So now are you building other types of products on the horizon, or is this the main focus right now that you're looking for larger distribution, or is it kind of a combination of both?
So we kind of look at growth in three phases. So the first is taking this one product out into, the Parkinson's and a little bit outside of that neurodegeneration kind of space. And then we look at expanding that to a number of different populations. And then we look at bringing on new products. So the next products that we're working towards is going to be including data collection into the product. So being able to understand how often is somebody walking, how often are they freezing, and getting that data piece integrated into it, which will opens up kind of the opportunity for people themselves to see how they're progressing, as well as their family, their caregivers, to understand how they're doing. It also gives access to their medical care providers who don't have access to any of that information once they go home and they're not in the clinic, whether that's a physical therapist or a neurologist. And that's really important to improve their care for their primary care provider to have access to how often are they falling, how often are they walking, is their walking getting worse, is it getting better? So that's kind of the next step for us, as well as integrating the product, the visual and auditory cues, into a product that attaches onto the body instead of onto a cane or a walker, because there are people that still have freezing or nude access to these visual and auditory cues who don't use canes or walkers right now.
Right. Oh, that's really cool that that's coming. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing breakthrough. Amazing. And it must make
Thank
you
you.
feel so good to know that you're helping so many people. And I can imagine the analytics is going to be great, not just
Yeah.
for the doctors, because that's of course, but for the patient to really, they always say, even like whether it's weight loss or whatever, when you're measuring your success, it empowers you, right?
Yep.
So
Totally.
yeah, to have the analytics saying, hey,
You're
you're
getting better.
walking, 50% more than you were last year, or, that's really
Yeah.
cool. What an amazing breakthrough. And
Thank you.
really it came from, you're saying, this human desire. You met this person, you're like, how can I help them? How could I
Yeah.
make this better? It's such a beautiful story. Thanks for sharing it. And so, yeah, I hope that the show gets the word out, because I think, in this day and age, almost everybody knows somebody with some sort of, situation like that. And so, so happy to get the word out, and hope people will visit. It's called Get NexStride, and then also they can get NexStride now on Amazon.
That's right.
Beautiful. And then maybe they have a foundation that would like to purchase them for underserved communities that could not afford it. So we'll plant that seed too. What's next for you? So you're looking maybe at, besides this product, maybe some other projects in the same arena or different arenas?
You mean outside of the kind of data collection piece?
Yes. Other type of products, maybe?
Right now we have our hands full with
Yeah,
this one product. So
First
we're
get this one
focusing
out
on
there.
this.
Right,
We're
right.
focusing on this, and we're focused on the data collection right now. In the future, definitely we want to stay in the kind of mobility space, because we think there's so much innovation that can happen there, to
I
allow
would love
people
to follow your
access.
social media with testimonials about this. I
Oh
hope
yeah,
you guys are going to be putting those up, right?
yes, definitely.
Great, great. So where can people find you on social media besides LinkedIn? Are you on other ones too?
Yep. LinkedIn is Dare Devices. We do kind of both branding. Dare Devices, the company, and then NexStride, the product. So on Facebook and Instagram, you can find us just at NexStride.
Okay. And I'm thinking, wouldn't someone like Michael Fox's Parkinson's Foundation, it seems like they would really be thrilled to hear about this.
I would love to connect with them about it.
Great. Well, we're going to put that out in the universe for you. Love it. Love it. Well, I just love women that are out there making a difference in the world. It must feel so good to know you're helping so many people, and, going to help so many more. And especially as it progresses with the wearable and the analytics, just bravo for what you're doing. I can see why you've won all these awards for your outstanding work, and I'm sure you'll continue to do so. So, Sidney, thank you so much for sharing this story, this information, and all the great work you're doing. It's a pleasure having you on today. Everybody, please check out Sidney Collin, and also check out Dioro Devices, and of course, Get NexStride. Everybody, make it a great day, and be sure to check us out, Catherine Gray, Invest in Her on Instagram, and visit our website, She Angel Investors. You can also find us on any social media, Instagram and otherwise, Facebook. And also, we have a new movie coming out about the underfunding of such brilliant women as Sidney in the venture capital world, where we get just 2%. And so check that out too. Our website for that is showherthemoneymovie.com, and you can follow us on Instagram at showherthemoney. So make it a great day, and thank you so much for being a great guest, Sidney. Take care.